The Tet Offensive, the battle that ended Vietnam. In 1968, the Tet Offensive took place, wherein North Vietnamese forces executed a well-coordinated series of attacks on over 100 cities and outposts in South Vietnam. Their aim was to incite rebellion among the South Vietnamese population and persuade the United States to reduce its involvement in the Vietnam War. Although the attacks were repelled by U.S. and South Vietnamese forces, the extensive media coverage of the offensive shocked the American public, leading to declining support for the war effort. Despite incurring significant casualties, North Vietnam achieved a strategic victory with the Tet Offensive, marking a critical turning point in the Vietnam War and initiating the gradual and difficult process of American withdrawal from the region. What was the Tet Offensive? The Tet Offensive, also known as the Lunar New Year Offensive, was a significant event during the Vietnam War. Celebrated as the most important holiday on the Vietnamese calendar, the Tet holiday traditionally involved an informal truce between South Vietnam and North Vietnam, including their communist allies, the Viet Cong. However, in a departure from the usual truce, the Tet Offensive marked a coordinated series of North Vietnamese and Viet Cong attacks on multiple cities and outposts in South Vietnam. During early 1968, General Vo Nguyen Giap, the North Vietnamese military commander, made a strategic decision to launch a surprise offensive on January 31st. The objective of these coordinated attacks was to break the existing stalemate in Vietnam. Working in tandem with North Vietnamese President Ho Chi Minh, Giap envisioned that the offensive would weaken the Army of the Republic of Vietnam (ARVN) forces, leading to their collapse. Additionally, he hoped that the attacks would generate discontent and rebellion among the South Vietnamese population. Moreover, Giap perceived the alliance between South Vietnam and the United States as fragile and unstable. He saw the offensive as an opportunity to further strain their alliance, hoping it would create a rift between them and ultimately persuade American leaders to abandon their defense of South Vietnam. The Khe Sanh attack. In preparation for the planned offensive, General Vo Nguyen Giap and his troops in the People's Army of Vietnam, PAVN, initiated a series of attacks during the autumn of 1967. These attacks targeted isolated American garrisons in the central highlands of Vietnam and along the borders with Laos and Cambodia. On January 21, 1968, PAVN forces commenced a massive artillery bombardment on the U.S. Marine garrison located at Khe Sanh. Situated on the principal road from northern South Vietnam into Laos, Khe Sanh became the center of attention for President Lyndon B. Johnson and General William Westmoreland, diverting their focus to its defense. Meanwhile, Giap's formidable force of 70,000 troops was poised to execute their primary objective, the Tet Offensive. The offensive begins. In the early morning of January 30, 1968, Viet Cong forces launched attacks on 13 cities in central South Vietnam, coinciding with the start of the Lunar New Year celebrations for many families. Within the following 24 hours, both People's Army of Vietnam, PAVN, and Viet Cong forces struck more than 120 targets across South Vietnam, including cities, towns, government buildings, and U.S. or ARVN military bases. One of the most daring attacks took place at the U.S. Embassy in Saigon, where a Viet Cong platoon managed to enter the embassy's courtyard before being neutralized by U.S. forces. The audaciousness of this attack and its initial success stunned American and international observers, with televised images of the carnage leaving a profound impact. Despite achieving surprise, General Giap's forces were stretched too thin in their ambitious offensive, allowing U.S. and ARVN forces to effectively counter most of the attacks and inflict heavy losses upon the Viet Cong. The Battle of Hue. Intense fighting unfolded in the city of Hue, situated on the Perfume River about 50 miles south of the North-South Vietnam border. After PAVN and Viet Cong forces seized Hue on January 31st, the Battle of Hue raged on for over 3 weeks. The invading forces easily overwhelmed the government forces, taking control of the ancient citadel within the city. During their occupation, Viet Cong soldiers conducted house-to-house searches, targeting and arresting civil servants, religious leaders, teachers, and other individuals connected to American forces or the South Vietnamese regime. These so-called counter-revolutionaries were executed and buried in mass graves. After regaining control of the city on February 26, U.S. and ARVN forces discovered evidence of the massacre, with over 2,800 bodies found and another 3,000 residents reported missing. The occupying forces had also caused significant damage to the city's grand temples, palaces, and monuments. The toughest battles occurred at the ancient citadel, where North Vietnamese forces fiercely defended against superior U.S. firepower. Television crews captured scenes of carnage as nearly 150 U.S. Marines and approximately 400 South Vietnamese troops lost their lives during the Battle of Hue. On the North Vietnamese side, an estimated 5,000 soldiers were killed, primarily due to American air and artillery strikes. Describing the intensity of the ground fighting, Howard Prince, a U.S. Army captain, later recounted to NPR, "What I saw was probably the most intense ground fighting on a sustained basis over several days of any other period during the war." Similarly, Mike Downs, a Marine captain, told NPR, "We didn't know where the enemy was, in which direction even." The impacts of Tet. Despite suffering significant casualties and failing to incite widespread rebellion among the South Vietnamese population, the Tet Offensive proved to be a strategic victory for the North Vietnamese. Prior to Tet, General Westmoreland and other representatives of the Johnson administration had been optimistic, claiming that the war's end was approaching. However, after the Tet Offensive, it became evident that a prolonged struggle lay ahead, shaking their confidence in their ability to secure victory in the Cold War. In response, Westmoreland requested over 200,000 additional troops to mount an effective counteroffensive, a move that many Americans perceived as an act of desperation. Mark Bowden, the author of the book, Hue 1968, remarked on the situation, stating, "You had the incredible rose-colored reports coming from General William Westmoreland, who was the American commander in Vietnam, assuring the American people that the end was near, and that the enemy was only capable of small ambushes in remote regions of the country." If you enjoyed this video and would like to see more, like the video and subscribe so you don't miss out on future uploads. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe.